Welcome to MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. Each week, I talk with industry leaders on both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing right now. We'll hear all about successes and wins, and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers.
Today, on MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers, I am joined by the author of the Top 100 List of Lies on Social Media, best-selling author, Daniel Hall, who is also the amazing personality behind the SPOTAPOD group and newsletter on LinkedIn, who I'm eternally grateful for. Daniel, it's a genuine pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. And thank you for everybody that's listening right now and taking time out of their life to make it about you and I and putting the human back in humanity.
I'm going to give a bit of your bio and then I'm going to explain a little bit of how I found you in the first place. And this is a special edition. Anybody who's watching along, this is a special edition. So normally we do a half-hour chat with the guest. We've had some amazing personalities on the show, some amazing stories. But the reason I want to share so much time with Dan here today is because I found him through professional terms. So I found him through his activity on LinkedIn and what he does, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. But as you can see from the wall behind Dan, he's so much more than that. There is a huge personal life behind him that I think we should share a little bit more information about at the same time. So I wanted to split this show in two halves, and I really don't think that we could have done either of the in a quarter of an hour, in a 15 session. It wouldn't do it justice. So I want to give us some breathing space. So I'm expecting this to record for about an hour. If you're watching along and you're finding this fascinating, feel free to just book this and come back to it. I don't expect you to watch it all in one go. There are some phenomenal truths and life lessons that you will pick up from this story that I cannot wait to share with you all. Dan is a full stack Microsoft developer, data analytics expert, and the founder of Dream IT Software. And he's got a career spanning over 20 years. He's worked on high-stakes software development projects across industries, from aerospace to nuclear, right? His passion for programming started, and I love this because it's very my own story. I started at age 8 with a Commodore VIC-20, VIC-20, setting the foundation for a lifetime of innovation. Beyond his technical expertise, Dan is a best-selling author. We mentioned the top 100 list of lies on social media. Note below will have links to both Apple Books and Barnes & Noble as well. He's the creator of SPOTAPOD. There it is. There it is. Yeah. The creator of SPOTAPOD, which is how I found you in the first place. And is a dedicated advocate for adoption, having built an amazing family of 7 children. There's a unique blend of data-driven problem solving and a deep commitment to human. He was his mission, as you said, to put the human back in humanity through technology. That is easily one of my favorite bios that I've had to read so far to date, Dan, and I know the truth behind it. We've swapped messages on LinkedIn for quite some time now. I think I probably found you about a year and a half, nearly 2 years ago. Like I said, the SPOTAPOD and newsletters, which, do you know what? I'm gonna leave it to you to explain SPOTAPOD and what that means for people, and we can get into it a little bit later once we've gone down the story of how you came to start that.
So all those accolades that you just rattled off, Paul, pale in comparison to being a dad. They're so minute for me. When we talk about SPOTAPOD, oh my gosh, that started as a temper tantrum for our 4-year-old daughter who was severely drug and alcohol exposed in utero. She's adopted. She spent 2 weeks in detox after she was born, and within about 4.5 months, part of her small intestines had died. So anytime you're thrown into the situation of working with fetal alcohol, you're going to be dealing with temper tantrums, just self-regulation. And one day she was throwing one of her screamers and she just disappeared. It went completely silent. She came back about 15 minutes later with a picture of her and I holding hands. And you can see by this picture, my mouth is huge, which means I was probably a little bit loud that day. And she came down with this picture. She had gone to her room and she came down with that picture and she said, Daddy, I am sorry. I am so sorry. And of course, she got emotional. I got emotional. And she asked if she could hang it up on my wall back here. And it was like, and then the pictures just started rolling in. Some just because, and some because of, more tantrums. But oh my gosh, Paul, she was 4 and she knew that taking time out of her life to make it about somebody else was so impactful. So over the course of 3 years, I developed software to solve the vanity metrics. I can actually calculate how much time we're spending together in the comments on social media. But as I was writing the software and looking at some of the data, I noticed that there was a lot of artificial intelligence inside the comments. And I'm like, is this what our future generations have to look forward to? Is all these vanity metrics? Our kids have some remarkable special abilities, but we don't want them to become a vanity number. We want people to see, love, hear, and value the time that they spend with our kids, not worried about whether they're, number 1 in this and number 2 in this, and I've got 1 million likes here and 1 million likes there. Nobody's going to ever remember your vanity metrics. Like Maya Angelou said, they're going to always remember how you make them feel. And that's what we want for our future generations, our family. That's me being selfish, but for our family, we want them to be appreciated for who they are. So that's why I started the SPOTAPOD movement. That's why I started the SPOTAPOD movement, was to call out and help humanity identify what was really going on under the hood with social media.
And so, like I say, we'll dig into that a little bit later, but I found you because your newsletter came up. And at that point, I'd heard of pods, but I wasn't really sure how prolific they are or how much of an impact they had on me or the people around me. And read that first newsletter, and there was some names mentioned in that newsletter that really threw me out, because one of the things that you do is you call out the people that evidence as having either been part of or utilized the pod in some way, shape or form to improve their own metrics and views and likes and things, their engagement. I started to read those newsletters, and the names that were mentioned in it blew me away, because they were people that I was using as a role model when I was first starting out on LinkedIn. And I assumed that their metrics were genuine. I thought these were achievable metrics with just hard work, good copy, good content, ideas.
Yeah.
And I realized I'd been fooled, and not so much that, but like also everyone around me was being fooled by these people and these tactics. And that really upset me, because like I'm a genuine guy. I don't do things to fool people. Like I'm very straight, honest, straight-laced, very upfront, and who I am is who I am on the outside as well as the inside. So that really frustrated me. And then I started following you, and I learned a lot more about your story, as you shared, some of your stories about adoption and fostering. And it blew me away that you gave so much of your time for other people, whether it was people on LinkedIn, whether it was your family. And at the time, I didn't really have any reason to spark a conversation with you, right? Like, I followed along, I enjoyed your content, and I kept an eye on things. And until this year, and I came to a point in December where a friend of mine had messaged me, and she said, I've been posting videos on LinkedIn for some time, and I've seen this guy, and he does really different kind of videos. They're very different to what I do, but he's getting loads and loads of engagement. And I think what I'm doing is wrong. What he's doing seems to be getting loads of engagement. And she's a marketing person, right? She's fabulous. She's really good at what she does.
Yeah.
She came to me and I went, it's a pod. It's a pod. And if you're not fully familiar with pods, we'll explain them in detail in a bit. But essentially, it's fake engagement. It's being part of a group for the purposes of automation to comment on or send specified outputs to any post of a member. And as I pointed this out to her, she realized that she'd wasted an hour of her life looking at this guy's video, trying to dissect them and understand why he would be doing particularly well, when they were actually just YouTube videos. They weren't suitable for LinkedIn. They wouldn't have driven natural engagement. They were only there because.
Yeah.
And I sent her your profile and asked her to kind of follow along on SPOTAPOD. But that really got me thinking, I've got this new podcast and I'd love Dan to be part of it. So again, that's a bit of the journey as to how we ended up meeting each other. Let's go back to when you were a kid, right? That Commodore, the Commodore, like that for me. I remember having an old Atari. And if I wanted to play games, I had to type them in out of the magazine that we got every month, record them onto a tape, some check them to make sure we hadn't put a dot instead of a comma somewhere, which we always had. And then eventually, after about 6 weeks worth of work, you might get to play that game if the tape loaded and didn't crash and you hadn't lost it. Walk us through why you loved it so much. What was about it?
Yeah, I was adopted, until I came into the Hall family. All I knew was just, you're nothing but a piece of shit and you won't amount to anything in life. That's what my life looked like prior to the Hall family. And then my mom, my adopted mom, would go to her church function and drop me off at the local college in Vermont. And we had friends and family that worked at the college. They would let me use the computer center there, and I was 8 years old at the time. COBOL and Pascal was the language of choice on these Digital Equipment Corporation, big, huge printers with green bar paper. And I would sit there and come home with these reams of green bar paper, and my mom would sit there with me, bored off her ass, and just cheerlead for me. She'd be like, that is so cool. She didn't understand anything that I was doing, but that was the first time in my life that I had such a positive experience with another human being. And it just became the catalyst. The Commodore VIC-20, I had the little cassette tapes that went into the little tape drives hooked to the back of it and the big cartridges. And I just learned recently, and I never picked this up, that the Commodore VIC-20 is actually the computer that's used on the John Wick films. If you go back and look at what they're typing in there, those are VIC-20 keyboards that they're using. And I was like, wow, that brought back some memories. But, that became the catalyst of me just wanting to find a solution. If you remember what I said about vanity metrics and finding a solution, it's just, I get so much enjoyment out of, trying to figure out a solution from a tech standpoint. That's just it's in my nature because that was what my mom had just inadvertently ingrained into my brain, that success equals, it's just like, it got me to a point where I feel like I get a vacation every day when I come to work. Anything. Just, I love it so much. And that's what she did for me.
I guess from the outside, to me, it kind of feels like you found a way to use technology to create a human link, not on purpose, but as a byproduct of what you did. And I think that's fantastic. I love that. So then, using that experience, where did you go from there? What was your career path then from that point?
I became a Microsoft junkie after that. They got me that Commodore VIC-20, and I went through, the life cycle of computers that came after that, the TRS-80, the Radio Shack computers. Then they got me my first PC, which was an Amstrad. It was an 8088 processor. And that's where I started picking up GW, what they call it, GW Basic. And, it was just going through the iterations of what Microsoft had come out with in Windows and the evolution of software back in the 80s. Having access to all that, my parents gave me access to all of that, whatever it was, because they saw I was absorbing it, and they knew that it would just become a career path for me. And on the flip side of that, they sent me down the career path of music, which I absolutely loved as well. But I have dyslexia. So whenever I need to read something, like even the book, writing this was such a chore. and I thought it was a piece of crap until they actually started using to narrate it. So yes, if you ever get the audiobook version, that is AI. It's a product called Hedra, which 11 Labs under the hood. It's AI narration. And I started writing music when I was 10, but I couldn't line up because of my dyslexia. I couldn't line up the lyrics and the notes and everything. It was all just jumbled for me. So I went and looked at it Suno, and all the background music that's used in the book for the audiobook is all AI. It's completely AI. But the music, if you ever get a chance, Paul, you should listen to some of the music that I've put out. It will rival some of the sounds of John Williams and, even the sounds of Dune and Gladiator. So AI can be used for good and be used responsibly. But like everything, you just have to have balance.
So
Yeah.
then I know you've got, you moved into the audio space, right? As you got older, you moved into, correct me if I'm wrong, it was kind of movie production and audio as well.
Yes. Yeah. Special effects, video.
Special shout out in today's episode for our charity partners, ADHD Liberty, led by Sarah Templeton, who are part of the fight to prevent the school to prison pipeline for ADHD and neurodiverse individuals. If you'd like to find out more, you can visit them. The show links are in the notes below, and I would encourage you to go along and have a look and educate yourself on their fight. It's an incredibly important cause, and we're super proud to have them as charity partners for the MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers podcast. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your episode.
Production. Correct.
Amazing. From those early days, then, what's your favorite role that you held? What was the bit where you got the biggest kick in those days? Because that was when all the modern, when I think back to like when Toy Story 1 got released, for example, I remember sitting absolutely blown away by the 3D imagery and knowing that had all been produced by a computer. And now look back on it and it's still like, do you know what? It's still watchable, which is the amazing thing for me. And we're like, 30 years later, it's still watchable, blows me away. But you went through that, right?
I did. There's one particular clip that I had to put together that I absolutely love. And it was for actually a friend of mine who was in House of Cards with Kevin Spacey. And it was done in Cinema 4D, and it was a dogfight with 3 German Messerschmitt planes. They were supposed to fly in the opening scene. They were flying in over the English Channel, and you would see the 3 Messerschmitt planes coming in, and then one would veer off. And it was kind of a storyboard for Talons of the Phoenix, who actually, Darren got Costas Mandylor. If you don't know who Costas Mandylor is, he is one of the actors from Saw, all the Saw movies. So just being able to work with that caliber of people, people see me as like a tech junkie, but there's a lot of stuff that I do that I don't talk about and just don't humble brag about. It's fun to have the opportunities to work on some of those projects like that, Paul.
Amazing. And then I guess from there, coming into having your own family and moving from that process of being adopted to being an adopter, what lessons do you take from that for other people?
That is an awesome question. I never wanted to be a dad of adoptive kids. Just conceptualize that. My wife asked me one day before we were married, would you ever consider fostering and adopting children? I think she was trying to set me up, but for that path. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I don't want to have to parent a child like I was growing up. And she just has this way of into your soul, my wife, reaching into your soul and capitalizing on the best parts of you and leaving the negativity behind, but also ensuring that she shows you a more positive outlook or positive. She gives you ideas of what can give you a better positive outcome than the path that you're going down. And she does that with me. She does it with her kids. And it's an amazing thing to watch. So I follow. I've learned to become an incredible follower of hers and her kids. In order to be a great leader, you have to be able to follow. You have to be a great follower. And family and my wife are my biggest teachers. I would not change that for anything. And I actually am thankful that I was put on a path, in my early years to understand what trauma looks like. Even though I had to live it, I'm thankful that I did live it because now I have some understanding of what the impact is. So when I'm working with our kids and they're throwing their screamers, I can just sit back and listen with more than just my ears and take it in. And it just, yeah, I'm thankful that she just holds my hand and leads the way because that's what I needed.
So I'm sure that the question everybody at home is thinking now is, how do you go from not wanting children to having 7 and a huge family that you know what, as a dad myself, and like you, it is something that we gel over, is like my family is everything, right? And I came from a corporate world where I was working 16-hour days and working an hour away from home each way and expected to manage my days off around the business and cancel them at short notice. And very much for the first 3 years of my son's life, I wasn't around a great deal and my wife had to just kind of cope. And now having him, he's a 7-year-old and I've got an 18-month-old as well. I'm very grateful that I have my own business, that I'm able to work from home, that I live in an age where working from home is something I can do even. So I'm very grateful for all that, but I cannot for the life of me fathom 7 children in my house like that. I'm good with 2. I don't think there's much left of me after 2. It takes an incredible parent to have 7 children in one household. So what's the secret?
My wife, we got our first 2. They came to us, our first 2 little girls, 4 and 8, are, 21 and 25 now, and they're getting ready to have their first children. And that was difficult. And then we had my great niece that was born, and that family needed help, and we couldn't turn them away, their family. And then my niece just kept pushing them out and pushing them out. And all of a sudden we went from 2 to 6. And during that journey, my wife and I looked at each other. Can we do this? It was mostly me. I can't do this. There's no way we can go from 3 to 4 to 5. And then finally at number 6, it was like, honey, we can do this. You prepared me for this moment. And it's that 4-year-old girl that I talked about that drew that picture. She was actually the last one. The number 7 is a biological child from my first marriage. So it's just, again, my wife just having that amazing way to work with our kids. And even through all the chaos, she's able to prioritize what we need to look at. If you got 3 kids throwing screamers, okay, where's the conflict at that we need to be able to diffuse first? She knows. And as far as, being able to manage it all, it's all about forgiveness. Every night when they lay their heads down, we will ask them, what's tomorrow? And they'll tell us it's a new day. And they know that doesn't matter what crap happened today. When they wake up tomorrow, my wife and I are going to be like, good morning, buddy. Love you, and it's a fresh start for them every single day. And that level of forgiveness is so important. And you know what, Paul? Sometimes at the end of the day, they will turn to us and say, Mommy, Daddy, what's tomorrow? Because maybe we've had a little bit of a rough day. they're going to do that with their kids. They're going to, it's just, it's that positive spin that you put on life that your kids are going to pick up and remember. And that's how we do it. And, people that don't want to be parents, I applaud them. They know what their limitations are as a person. If you only have 2 kids, that's what you've decided is your limit. And that's awesome. I commend you for that. If it's 6 or 9 or 12 and you can do that, it's amazing. That's incredible. How do you do it? Because I want to know. It's more of being a sponge, but that's a great question.
Fantastic. I've thoroughly enjoyed digging into some of these topics with you, because I just think it's amazing to meet somebody who, like, let's be honest, from my perspective, I can see that everything that you do is aimed at helping make the world a better place, starting at home, but with the, knowledge that every decision that you make, every success that you have at home impacts on the wider world, and that has a ripple effect outwards. And I know that's part of the reason why you then got so heavily involved in the SPOTAPOD movement, because the idea that people were lying to others in order to financially gain and to con other people into horrendous workloads. Let's be honest, like, because some of the answers for, some of these people at the top of the pod chain, I'm going to call it, right? I'm going to coin a new phrase, but the pod chain. Some of these influencers at the top are selling courses for like $69 or $79. Come buy my course and I'll teach you how to be amazing at LinkedIn. And I know loads of people who've bought these courses and almost ran themselves into the ground trying to follow the tactics that don't work, because they're tactics that these people use now, as opposed to, or have an army of people to do for them, as opposed to them trying to do it themselves back when they first started on LinkedIn. And you can use that celebrity status, that influence that you have once you've got so many thousand followers, to gain traction with ideas and themes and courses much faster than you can when you've got 1,000 followers or you've got 2,000 followers, right? What was the first time that you realized that you could intercept pods? And maybe a better question is to start with, what's a pod and how do people use pods, Dan?
Well, Kevin D. Turner in our book kind of gave me a really cut and dry term for the acronym PODS. He said pods are, the old performance enhancing drugs, back in the day. And he calls them post optimized deception services, pods. And what that means is, let's say you and I got onto WhatsApp, Paul, and I said, hey, can you just like and drop a comment on my post? And you're like, sure. And you go and probably read it and, put a genuine comment in there. But if you magnify that by hundreds of people, not everybody's going to go in there and have your best interest in mind. Those are what are called manual engagement pods, where you have hundreds of people in there, but they're all manually commenting and liking. And that just takes so much time out of your life to be able to do that. Then somebody came up with the idea of letting AI do this. You sign up to be part of one of these services and you join 20 or 30 pods. And the same thing is happening, except it's AI. So if you have one of your posts, Paul, and you said, oh, I want to get some engagement on this, so I'm going to put my post in here, pick, the 20 or 30 pods that I want to be able to engage in my post, and then just walk away and let AI decide who's going to drop a like, who's going to drop, a clapping or a love, or AI does everything. AI is even going to drop the comments for you. That is deception like you wouldn't believe. At the end of the day, it's like the old style Ronco products that we used to have here in the US. And the tagline for their products was set it and forget it. So you would sign up for these pod services, you could walk away, and all of a sudden you're commenting on stuff that you have no idea what you're even commenting, which is super scary. There are post about our political stuff that's going on here in the US and blue badges are reacting to and engaging on. And it makes it look like, because everybody looks up to those people that are blue badges, oh, this must be legit. This must be social proof because this person is engaging on it. When in reality, they're in a pod. They have no idea that they engaged on that unless they're actually looking every day, every second at that activity. They have no clue because it's boop, it's there and then it's gone because they're engaging on something else.
Yeah.
You could lose your business. You could destroy your brand. You could end up in jail by engaging on something that is nefarious, is disinformation. But, you start out with you and I being in a pod, and hey, yeah. But then when you magnify it, and people just don't have your best interest in mind, it's super scary. That's not a world that I want our future generations to grow up in.
The scariest thing for me is that you also identified that some people out there don't even use the pods themselves, right? They're a pod kingpin and they're using their influencers
Correct.
and followers to engage with the pods on their behalf, which it just takes the deception to that extra level because they're protecting themselves and using other people, right?
And they're also those blueprints and all these different groups, parties, communities, cohorts, whatever you want to call them. They'll get people to sign up and they will make them think that, you pay them the money and then they turn around. They don't tell you, but if you put a post in as part of their cohort, they'll take that post that you just put in and they'll drop it in their pod. So when you see all the engagement, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this person over here that just is helping me with my marketing knows their stuff. But the moment that you stop paying them, they will take your content out of those pods and it will drop. But you have no clue.
Yep.
You have no clue. Those are the connection kingpins and queenpins that you talked about. They'll find those digital marketers and make some unholy agreement with them that they have to, post 4 or 5 of their, or share 4 or 5 of their posts per month in their pods. It doesn't look like those king or queen pins are in pods, but their content is still getting that engagement because, 10 or 15 creators are putting their content in their own pods. So you'll never find them in a pod, but you'll always see that engagement there. And once you start seeing how fast it comes in, you'll know right away. If you have within 30 minutes, 1,000 likes or a couple hundred comments, it's not possible. You can post that at the same time every day, but yeah, you're posting it at the same time and dropping it into pods.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can prove all of this too, which is the interesting thing for me is I'm always skeptical of people when they claim these things because everybody has their own ulterior motives these days. And it almost becomes a point to where how cynical do I have to be to survive? But I've seen you, I know enough about tech to understand the basics of how you do what you do. But you've got a whole database of people that you can prove, you can evidence, you've got their post, you can identify the receipt that went with it to prove that it came through a pod, all those sorts of things.
I mean, I never will throw or call out anybody unless I have what I call social proof.
Yep.
And that's not going in and hacking these platforms. It's just observing the traffic that's coming back to my system. That's legitimate traffic. If I navigate, I'm in thousands of pods, manual and automated. So if I go and I look at a post, like if I went in today and pulled up Link Boost, navigated to the pods that I'm in, pulled up a post, that sends all the data back down to my computer, which I can then collect about that post, which includes everybody that engaged on it. It includes the creator that pushed it out, the digital marketer that pushed it out, and it also includes the actual link to the post. And the hilarious thing about this is it includes the AI comments that are used. So those comments that you see that are dropped that looks like AI, I like calling out the comments that were used because that's what comes back down to my PC,
Yep.
and that's the digital receipt.
And you've also caused those people in the pods to comment on your post and identify themselves, right? Because I thought that was hilarious because that's one of the reasons why we ended up chatting again, because I actually saw somebody who is in my local area, who is a digital marketing expert and who is part of quite a big social media agency here in the UK. And I screenshot that he was in the pod at the time and I sent it to my friend because I was furious. I was like, how can somebody who runs a social media agency resort to these tactics and get caught? And of course, they don't realize they're being caught out because it's just another comment on another post. Unless somebody tags them back and goes, what are you doing here? Then they have no idea. So I'm pleased that I did screenshot it because his boss commented on one of my posts about something about how AI shouldn't be used for nefarious means. And I went, you can talk. Your team's doing it. And he went, oh, my team's not doing it. And I put the screenshot in the post. Strange enough, he went quiet. He went really quiet. And I'm like, you guys just honestly.
Wow.
So it's amazing. It's a tool to be able to fight back. And I know that, I've a couple of times I've looked at influencers and all I have to do is I just have to type in their name and SPOTAPOD. And if they've ever been in one of your articles, their name's going to come up. The article comes up, and I'm not even going to drop names on this show, right? Like I don't need to. They're all out there already. Yeah. But if you're curious, go and have a look in Daniel's articles online. And if you find it of use, I'll also say this, right? Dan has a community where you can buy access to the entire database of people that he's caught to date. So by all means, it's not expensive. It's not about Dan making money out of this. It's about paying for his costs and upkeep and things. If you've enjoyed the story today and you're like me, you're a big believer in the work that Dan does, then go and have a look at the website and purchase a membership or something, because honestly, it makes such a difference to meet other people in this world who are trying to make a positive difference, not because you're paid to, but because you care enough to do something about it.
People have asked me, how do I know when I'm successful at this? I tell them success looks like helping people see social media with their eyes wide open. It's that simple. That, and just they talk about it and then others talk about it. It's about the impact. It's not about, if you look at how we put the book out into market, we did the audiobook first. We gave it away for free. People don't understand why I did that. Why didn't I put a print version out? I and my wife, our family is comprised of children that have disabilities. That was to meet the needs of the accessibility community. The audiobook was out there. It was for free. And anybody that was blind, anybody that was dyslexic like me, that couldn't pick up a book and read it, because you get lost after the first page, but they can listen to it. It's there. Then after that, just, putting out the ebook and everything, for free. And it's interesting because the best selling part of this is people paying for it. That's been the biggest seller, is just people want the printed copy, just to have the printed copy. And I never expected that, Paul. I wanted them to be able to be impacted and to learn, don't sit there and just keep grilling yourself why your content is not performing well. You're doing the right things, just rinsing and repeating and learning from your process. Not everybody's content is going to be your content. Your content is your own. You're going to meet the needs of your community only. You're not going to meet the needs of the masses. It's never going to happen.
Yep.
But if we can help people see the other side, the dark side of this, then that's what success looks like.
As a bit of advice for people who are out there who are now perhaps beginning to open their eyes a little bit to what's going on let's be honest, it's not just on LinkedIn. Like, I'll be clear on that. This is not just LinkedIn. This is Facebook. It's all of the social media platforms. No matter where you go, this automated engagement happens. How can I, as a non-expert, get some idea of whether somebody's working using a cheat code? How do I know that they're part of a pod in some way, shape, or form?
The biggest telltale sign is, and I always say the devil's in the details. You can have somebody that has the big reactions, the really a whole lot of reactions, a whole lot of comments, but the consistent telltale sign for me is the shares and who is sharing that information. If you drill down into those reposts or those shares and you just keep, it takes a little bit of time, but if you keep scrolling to the bottom of that list and you see that, the creators reposting it, you maybe the next 5 or 10 reposts are from accounts that have like 10 or 15 connections, then that's probably an engagement pod. So you have to do the legwork. Most of the stuff on Facebook, the crap that you're seeing that's AI, is all pushed through engagement. And I'll sit there and on those posts and I'll say, you do know it's against the law to use fake engagement, on social media. No, that's not true. Yeah, it is. The Federal Trade Commission passed that law on October 21st of 2024. It's against the law to use that in the US, to use fake followers, fake reactions, fake engagement, period. Yeah.
Amazing. So my take on this and what I might suggest to members of the audience who's watching this, like if you're out there and you're comparing what you're doing with someone else, which I think is a danger anyway, right? Like ultimately you're in a race with yourself, compare with yourself and get better based on your own. And if you do find somebody that you want to role model with, reach out to them and have a conversation and find out how real they are, right? You'll figure it out pretty quickly, because I can guarantee there's no substance to a lot of the people that are getting thousands of comments and likes. But more importantly, if you're in any doubt that they're in a pod, and you have to ask yourself the question, are these people in a pod because their engagement is so amazing? Probably they are. Without the research, you can't prove it, but let's assume that they are and move on and just get on with your life. The most horrifying thing for me is if I look at my friend that I talked about in December, and she wasted an hour of her time trying to figure out why her videos weren't performing as well as this guy. We multiply that across how many people are using LinkedIn even just on its own? Like 2-4 billion, something like that. It's a ridiculous number of people.
Yeah, 1 billion, but 25% of those are fake accounts. And it's not just me saying that. I was saying that last year, but there's a company called Lunio that has done all kinds of research behind it. And I think they came up with like 24.7%, which was pretty accurate. And I said 25% because Michelle J. Raymond from Australia had said she's been approached by multiple, maybe king, queen pins, and they're telling those people to create 20 to 30 fake accounts to drive their business funnels and to put those fake accounts in pods. And it's true. One of the posts that I'm working on now is there's like 20 or 30 fake accounts called James Brown. They're on Lempod. And those fake accounts are driving engagement for some of those connection king and queen pins, which is pretty hilarious.
It baffles me. Yeah. That's the level that we go to in order to fake success, when actually what we should really all be focusing on. The irony is, like, I know some people that work with top LinkedIn influencers, and I'm going to use quote marks for the influencer part, because they've got hundreds of thousands of connections, or followers rather, and are still struggling to monetize their LinkedIn, because ultimately it's a bunch of bots that are following them, or people who don't care what they have to say, or they're in the same space and they're a competitor, or all of these crazy things. And like the whole digital engagement is just not achieving anything other than ripping people off, conning people out of money, and wasting so much time for so many good people. And like I say, I get people come to me and all the time, Paul, I want to launch a podcast. I want a podcast with millions of followers. I want to monetize it. I want to get thousands of views on YouTube. Like, you've got 3 ways you can do that, right? You can either be a celebrity right now. Are you a celebrity? No, I'm not a celebrity. Okay, well, your celebrity status is out the window, so we can't use that one. Number 2, you can put thousands and thousands of dollars behind it and pay for paid media adverts. Can you do that? No, I can't do that. Okay. Your third option is automated engagement then. and fake your engagement, which all of the podcast platforms will be able to identify, by the way.
Yeah.
So now what do? Well, you do what everybody else does and you launch a podcast and hope to get a sponsor if you're good enough, or you just accept that you're not going to get thousands of views, but you'll add some value. And that's the whole point. It's just frustrating that we have to keep having these conversations over and over again, but it's good to know that there's somebody out there who's trying to do something about it and help shine a light on the dark corners of social media so that we can see what's there. So Dan, I'm gonna draw this to a close now. We've done just under an hour and I've said I'd keep it to the hour. I appreciate your time so much, and genuinely, we haven't even touched on some of the stories that you have to tell around, there's half the stories you can't tell because you'd have to kill me afterwards. The rest of we haven't talked about the 9/11 project. There's so many things. I'd love to have you back on in a few months when we've cleared down the queue a little bit more, but thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it massively, Dan.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. I'm going to leave people with this one thought. Life is not defined by how successful you are. It's defined by your failures and how well you learn from them.
I love it.
Thank you, everybody, so much for taking time out of your life to spend it with Paul and I.
Thank you very much, Dan. And yes, exactly. Thank you very much for watching along at home. I hope you're enjoying season 2 as much as I am recording it, because it's been an absolute blast. And I will see you again next week. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.